Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cup of Three. My name is Ashley. I'm joined by my quarantine partner and podcast partner, Goo, as well as our Married at First Sight friend, Gabriella Elizabeth Marie from the Reality TV Reviews channel on YouTube. Woo! So, hello, Gabriella. Welcome back.
Hi, everybody.
So, we have been in season 12 of Married at First Sight, and it's already been a wild ride. We've only seen some of the weddings. But I think there's a lot to talk about. So, first of all, this is the first time we're really catching up with you, Gabrielle, about just like season 12 in general. What are your thoughts so far about what you've seen?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're in for a bumpy ride. I think probably about 3 of the couples, I feel very strongly they have a chance to succeed. The other 2, I'm not so sure. So we're talking about Jacob and Haley and Chris and Paige.
Okay.
I really don't know how they will gel overall. I'm curious to see what happens, and maybe Jacob and Haley will prove me wrong. But I'm worried. I'm worried for them. The other 3, I think, will have a little bit of a difficulty in maybe seeing eye to eye at times. You know, Vincent and Brianna. Brianna, I think, is very strong, very much wants things to go her way.
Mm-hmm.
And there might need to be a little bit of compromise that happens. And then we have Ryan and Clara. Ryan is very, very reserved and so sweet, so quiet. I think very much used to being a solitary person. And then we have Clara, who, as dear as she is, as sweet as she seems to be, she just doesn't stop talking. I mean, I loved what she was saying, nothing against it, but she doesn't stop talking. And I think we saw some of his reactions to her at some point. We'll talk about that later, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see how they balance each other out. I think there's great potential there. But there might be a little bit of hiccup as we move forward with them. Eventually, I'm hoping it will turn out okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
the third couple. So, who do we have left? That was
Paige.
So, Virginia and Eric?
Ryan and Clara. Yes, thank you. So, Eric and Virginia. Eric just seems like a babe in the woods. You know, just innocent. Even though he's
the Atlanta woods.
even though he's so much, even though he's so much older, I think he's so much younger in so many ways. And then when it comes to Virginia, we see the party girl. We see this Ms. Good Times and having fun, throwing maybe a few too many back. However, I think she's in it for the right reasons. I think she wants a marriage. I think she wants something lasting. I think they both do. So I'm really hoping, that they'll find a way to make it work. And that's where we are right now. How about you? How do you feel so far about?
I agree. I think there's a lot of interesting pairs. It seems like there's a lot of like kind of opposites paired together where I feel like it's maybe a thing where the experts are like, okay, these two opposites will kind of mellow out and meet in the middle, or they'll complement one another. But I'm a little bit worried that for some, that's going to be a little bit too extreme. It's going to be like a really big jarring start. Like I think they have a tendency of like pairing a lot of extroverts with introverts. And I think that can be a good pairing. Like I'm in a introvert extrovert pairing right now, and that works out pretty well. But I also think it's okay to have 2 introverts together. If you're a homebody and you like to be at home, it's okay to have a partner that likes to be at home too. I'm thinking of Jacob and Haley, where like he has his whole home set up to like be there, and that could be just like partially due to the pandemic and everything. But I get the sense that Haley's like not so much that type of person. So I'm interested to see how it plays out. Like all of this, it's hard. Like obviously we get to see some of them actually interact for the first time, which is really helpful. But like I'm honestly very anxious just to start seeing them like spend time together, because like you don't get a good sense of, I don't know, sometimes 2 different energies come together and then it's a new energy completely, like something you couldn't have really predicted fully. So I'm interested to see them spend time together and actually like talk about serious things. It's a lot of just the nervous chatter right now as they like just got married. So I'm just kind of holding on for that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I This is
Absolutely.
such a roller coaster for me, these episodes, because the first one I wasn't feeling confident about a lot of them, the couples, honestly. I like a lot of them as people, but just just I wasn't confident. And then the wedding episode, and this happens to me every season. I'm like, you know what? They're gonna be fine. Like, look at them. Look how happy they look. This is gonna be.
Yeah.
They have the sweet music going in there. They got the slow mo, and I'm just like, they'll be happy. There's one couple that they didn't really do that for, and I think that'll be interesting when we talk with Eric and Virginia. Like it was a lot more silences, and they held on to certain scenes a lot longer than I would expect. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Hmm.
that's interesting. But all the other weddings, I was just really hopeful. Um, but similar to you, I do. My instincts is right now, if I had to guess, 2 out of 5 staying together. Hopefully 3. Um, but considering that the first episode, I thought it was going to be 1 out of 5. We're doing better. We're going up. So, um, which couple do you guys want to start off with? I think that'll be
Let's start with Virginia and Eric because I feel like there's a lot to talk about there.
okay.
I mean, Agu,
Hmm.
you were hinting at like kind of the storytelling that's happening with how their story is presented to
Hmm.
us. That there's, if you pay attention to like what music they use or like a complete lack of music, I have just this theory that like if we were to just watch the whole show on mute and just read the subtitles, we would have a completely different
Ooh,
take
we
on
should try
this.
that.
Because like
Hmm.
adding music to stuff, like it impacts, like look at any TikTok video of someone dancing. And I swear, if you have that thing on mute, they look dumb. If they have the music on and it's like the music drops right when they do their little kicky thing, like they look like they're the best dancer in the world. And like it impacts how we think about things.
It's so
So I'm
true.
like I'm
Yeah.
very hesitant to judge Virginia, for example, for like they are very clearly trying to show us that like she drinks a lot, which we already know. Like she
Hmm.
admits to it. It's not a secret.
Mm.
And I also don't know if that's really a big deal. Like, if know a lot of people who are like fairly heavy drinkers, and they're also fine people and like responsible adults, and it's not. It doesn't
Hmm.
doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have
Yeah,
to.
especially on
Um,
one's wedding day. Like I
Right.
know people who aren't heavy drinkers that when it comes to their wedding day, they're just like, "Ah,"
like,
they're drinking everywhere.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
gonna turn into a gift somewhere that I regret. But so I'm definitely there with you. I think um, the age difference. So they've had age differences before, and
mhm,
I've always been like Karen and Miles, even though they had their age difference from the previous season. It's like I think I can
Hmm.
really see this working. The age difference with this couple feels it feels like it's there. Actually, it feels even wider, honestly. Like I think she's a little bit more of just reminds me of me in college, honestly. um,
Hmm.
and he seems to be a little bit more reserved and conservative. Even like he reminds me of like a 40-year-old type of view. Um,
Hmm.
so it feels very wide, the age difference, but I think I could still see it working though, and I think he is from what we've seen. It seems like he's really in this for the process, and I could see him
Hmm.
like, you're right, I'm not a drinker, but I'm going to try, or you know what, this is not my scene normally, but you're my wife, and I'm going to go out there and I think that's going to help them quite a bit in the long run. So I'm hoping.
Right. It's, I have to agree with you 100%, Agu. I think he's in it for the
Yeah.
long run and for the long haul, whatever that may entail. He's willing to put in the work. He's not going to throw her aside easily. He will be willing to do what it takes to figure out, first of all, why they were paired
Yeah.
together. And then, try and find some sort of way to salvage what they have and build from there. I think he really is definite in his resolve for what this relationship could be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that will probably be their saving grace, because as much as I really do think Virginia wants this, as you both mentioned, she's so young. There's such this very, like you were saying, you as a college student, that's how you were. I, I think that's pretty much how we all were, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that early 20s mindset where you're just out to have a good time no matter what. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt anyone else. It's just, yay,
Yeah.
woo. Um, yeah, that's it with her. But there's more to her. And I think she's trying to find that. And I'm hoping that he can shed a light on whatever that is. Not that you should necessarily need that from another person, because then I think we're stepping into some codependency
Right.
issues there,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
whatever that might be. But maybe he will help her to see that it's always been inside of her the whole time, that she's always kind of had that part of her that can stabilize herself.
Yes.
And, that could be the key. So, Eric, it's all up to you.
Eric, I know you're listening.
No pressure.
I know you're
Yeah,
listening.
no, I
No
like that you
pressure.
I like that you said the like stabilize herself thing, because I think that's a big part of it. Is she like talks very openly about like feeling like she may have some abandonment issues from like her past with her family, and like that's, I wouldn't wish that like childhood on anybody, trying to feel like you don't have like kind of a stable home base, and emotionally even having that a stable emotional home base. And
Mhm.
I think part of growing up is realizing that like that things can happen to you, but you can also like become that for yourself, where you are your home base. So your home base is wherever you go, whatever
Mhm.
relationship you're in, you always have yourself to rely on, and you don't have to look for that somewhere else. And it actually makes you happier. It makes you a better partner. And I think that's something that she's kind of like sliding into right now. Like I get a little bit of the feeling when she, like the scenes of her like before the wedding and as she was getting ready and everything, like she has this like feeling of this like energy of like looking around and like kind of always trying to like anticipate like what's coming. And I'm like, if you just kind of slow your roll for a second, like just be present, it's okay. Like you're gonna be okay. And I just want to like tell her that, because she just is clearly so
Yeah.
nervous. And maybe it's just, I'm just saying this because we just saw this episode where her nerves are like sky high, and she's just like nervous talking for days and like can't like just like all over him to like kind of fill the gaps of silence and conversation. And
Mhm.
I just wanted to be like, just relax. It's okay. You've got the rest of your life to figure this out. Just relax.
Wow, Ashley, that's exactly what she
Yeah.
was doing. I mean, I didn't connect it until just now, but all the kissing during
Yep.
the first dance, like how she was so all over him, it was to make herself feel comfortable in whatever
Mm-hmm.
this empty
Yeah.
space was. Like whatever the silence was, whatever the awkwardness was, she just had to fill it in some
Yeah.
capacity. And that's what she was
Yeah.
doing. Totally. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping it's
Mind
just a nerve
blown.
thing.
Same. Like it's while you were describing this, I'm like, oh, that's nervous energy right there. That's a lot
Yeah.
of nervous
It just made
Totally.
energy.
it kind of uncomfortable to watch, honestly. So just like,
It was.
ooh, like there's been times in my life where I like that's, I mean, I think that's why I can describe it so well, because I have been that person. So
Yeah.
no shade at all.
Yeah.
Like I think we all do that in our own way. But
Yeah.
um
It was
I'm hoping she
comforting.
just mellows.
Oh, sorry to hop in there, but it was comforting to see him like their first dance where he goes like, it's okay, we're gonna be fine through this, and you can tell she's that nervous energy that you're mentioning where she's like, oh gosh, they're all staring at us, and
Mm-hmm.
he's trying to be a little bit more of a stable, I don't know, stable foundation for them,
Mm-hmm.
which is comforting, and I think that's a good first sign. Um, and yeah, you're right. I think like that's so much pressure. There's so much pressure to be through this. You're meeting your person for the first time. You're having a wedding in a pandemic. You're on national television. Even the drinking, like uh, we've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of comments where they're like a lot of negative comments towards her, and I'm getting all the like party girl, and she's not in this for the right reason. And I think if you're nervous and there's complimentary alcohol everywhere, a lot of people are going to indulge, um, and I hopefully this is just their first date, quote unquote, and it's a nervous first date, but it's
Mhm.
going to be completely fine going forward. Um, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. Is there
Yeah,
anything?
I'm hoping so too.
Was there anything in particular in this episode that you found like odd or a standout moment with their interactions? If you don't mind me asking.
Um, Not so much with their interactions. The first dance we were talking about just now, and he did seem slightly uncomfortable, like he was very much aware of the audience watching
Mhm.
them and how she was acting. But then how he was talking to the producers, there was this very positive outlook
Mhm.
he gave them and basically saying, "Oh yeah, I think she's wonderful. This is going to be fantastic. She's a lot of fun." There was this he just kind of was saying, "This is great. It's going to be great." And so I don't know when exactly those interviews took place with the producers, but just seeing the difference between what was happening on the dance floor and during the reception. And then his takeaway from everything. I'm hoping it was sort of like at some point during or maybe after some of those scenes we watched, he's still like, okay, I'm in it. We got
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
So that's what makes me even more hopeful. I think he is concerned. I would be too
Yeah,
if I were him. But at the same time, um, I think anyone looking at her can basically tell that she's kind of this decent person who is completely with a good heart, has great intentions, and just needs a little bit of help steering herself in the right direction.
Mhm.
And he seems to have that compassionate soul
yeah,
to do that.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to say about them.
Yeah.
I just really I'm so curious to see what happens.
yeah.
I'm very hopeful for what's going to happen with them. I don't, I was shaking my head, Agu, when you were saying that people are commenting saying that she's just a party girl and being so dismissive of her. I don't see that at all. Um, there have been certain participants in the past where there are certain participants this season, one in particular, where I'm just like, why are they even here? Like,
I wonder
what
who
is
that
wrong with
is.
them? Ah, but not her. I think she does want this, and she'll figure herself
Yeah.
out, hopefully.
Yeah.
Mm.
I feel like there's kind of um like the way I was saying before about like the opposites and then meeting in the middle. I think they're one of the couples that's really going to be like find their middle ground between them because I think because he has such a like I think in our society like prestigious job being a airline pilot that like you think of a very particular guy that's like very like no nonsense and he like all his shirts are ironed and he's got like his whole life together and he's like balances his checkbook every night before bed at 9 p.m. like that kind of a it gives you like that idea of a person, especially since he's like military and all this stuff. And I think he like likely has aspects of that, but I also think he's got like a very young playful energy about him. Like when you see him with his friends,
Yes.
like his actual body language, he reminds me of like the stoner skateboarder friends I had in high school who were like just like very relaxed and very like go with the flow, but could also like button it up sometimes, probably later when they got older. But like he has kind of some of that energy to me. And I think with her, we get like the first impression is of this like young party girl who's like out to have a good time. But I think when you peel that back a little bit, she is actually really serious and earnest about the process. And so I think that's like why I'm not as worried about the age difference. I think there's like going to be a place that they kind of like fall in the middle there.
It's the hoodies,
Hmm.
right? It's the hoodies that make you think because he has a lot of hoodies, quite a bit.
He does. His style is very like
She proceeds.
teen figuring it out. We're keeping it
Look
casual
like a
here,
hacker all
but
of a sudden. It's weird. You put the hoodie up, and I'm just kidding. Yeah, I that's a really good observation there.
Mhm.
I feel yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I'm with you on that.
we'll see.
here's for meeting in the middle. Absolutely. This couple, I really do
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
them. I really am rooting so hard for
yeah.
them.
The
I
only
think they
so there's a scene that initially I was taken aback, but then the more I think about it, I empathize. And the scene in particular was when I think they were kind of sitting together having their meal, and she's asking about his family, and he's like, "Yeah, we're really conservative," and she then starts to go into like, "Well, my parents are, but I'm not really," and she kind of explains that her sister is in um, a queer relationship, and that her brother, her two brothers are I forget how in particular, but just kind of explaining that they're not a traditionally conservative on the kids' side. And at that point, I was thinking, this is a bit early. But I have
hmm
to I have to remind myself, like, this is their first date. And I get why, when she heard conservative, she's like, all right, well, I have to like let you know about this because that might not necessarily agree with the conservative side of your family. And um I think it's good to show that like she's willing to talk and be open, and he's willing to explain. And it seemed like he didn't have any issues with that, so it's great. But that was one of those scenes
Mhm.
that in the while we were watching it, I was like, oh, this is a weird conversation to have now.
Yeah.
Did you guys have the same feeling,
Yeah,
or was it just
there were.
me?
No, I thought there was a little bit of putting him on the spot in that moment. Even though I can, as you're saying, I can empathize with why she would want to do that and why she might have those worries and just anxiety. Will you accept me? Will you accept my family? So I do get it overall why they had the conversation, why she would initiate
Yeah.
that with him. But yeah, it did seem a little bit heavy handed. The other thing I noticed, you kind of jogged my memory on this, when they were sitting at the table eating, she was looking straight at his mother, it seemed. She was like looking very seriously out at whomever in the audience. And she said, what does your mother think of this? Like, does your mother like me or something like that? It seems so
Hmm.
not like she was joking about it. There wasn't a flirtation to it. Like, oh, says your mom like
Mm,
me? What'd she say? There wasn't anything cutesy. It was very much like this serious worry.
Hmm.
So what does your mother think?
Interesting.
yeah.
I mean, his mom did kind of have the vibe of like not really being about this whole thing.
Mm,
She seems like
Yeah.
someone that's a little bit hard to win over. But I think too I don't know if you guys caught this, but earlier in when he was talking to like before the wedding when he was just talking to his groomsmen, he made a comment about his previous marriage that made a lot of sense to me where he said basically it was a marriage of convenience because it was like around the time he was joining the
yeah.
military and it was like going to give them access to be able to like spend time together sometimes. And so he says he didn't even wear a ring and like it wasn't he's considering this his like first marriage
Yeah.
because they're he's kind of going through to this into a different mindset. And I was like, oh well, that's very different than what they had made it seem like before that, where it was like him talking about his first marriage is like, yeah, it didn't work out because we had these different problems and challenges, but they completely left out the part that it was like, it was kind of something it sounds like they did for legal reasons so that they could continue a
Mm,
relationship, not necessarily start a marriage and be together forever. But I
Hmm.
thought like that kind of made me think of that a lot differently where I'm like I mean
yeah.
that's kind of like if there would have been paperwork that was just like we're in a committed relationship but it wasn't a marriage that would allow her to visit him or something, then it would have been the same thing like it was just
Yeah.
different. So I don't know if that makes you feel differently about like him being divorced and like that's such a big deal on here.
Yeah.
It's funny. I never found it to be a big deal in the
Right.
first
I mean, yeah.
place.
Yeah.
You know, people are young, people fall in love and they think this is the person, and then it turns out they go very different directions,
Mm-hmm.
and that's such a normal
Mm-hmm.
thing. And then by the time you're in maybe your mid 20s to late 20s, if you make it that far, you realize, oh my goodness, I married you as a child. And now we are grown people and we don't even know each other.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so there's no shame in basically putting that relationship aside
Mm-hmm.
and saying, okay, time for a redo, time to focus on myself, time to maybe try again. There's nothing wrong with
Mm-hmm.
that. I never thought that was a negative in his box.
Yeah. And it made sense to me too because he was completely growing his career from the ground up, the ground to the sky, you could
Oh
say,
gosh.
as a pilot.
And the puns are back. Puns are
I'm
back.
gonna have to have a lot of jokes to write for this guy. But yeah. um yeah, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. And like you're saying, especially like a divorce early on in life, I think that's a little bit different and you kind of go in with different expectations, especially with the added context. I'm just like, it's a breakup.
Mhm.
Like that's really all a divorce is a breakup. It's just got the government involved now.
Yeah.
Right.
And some divorce
Yes.
lawyers and a few
More
courts.
money.
And more
Yeah, they're
money.
paying more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised though. Seems like we're all kind of rooting for them and think they're going to stay
Yeah.
together, is what I'm picking up here.
Yay.
I think we might be like a small minority of people who think this, but you know what? We'll be vindicated when they stay together and we can say, I told you so.
Yeah, we'll show them.
Exactly.
All
Oh,
right, let's
okay.
move over to Clara and Ryan.
Mhm.
So they're the ones that had the whole blindfold surprise thing.
Mhm.
And Gabrielle, I know you had some feelings about that with like how that worked with like a lady
Yes,
in makeup that he might not have thought about.
it's true. He didn't quite consider the makeup
Mm.
aspect, but I forgive him completely because of how beautiful the sentiment was.
Yeah, it was
I
nice.
mean, really, it was, especially in the age that we're going through right now when he was explaining so many of our senses have been taken away from us, especially the sense of touch and being with other people freely.
Mm-hmm.
And for that to be their first experience, I just thought, oh my goodness, he's a little Shakespeare right here.
Yeah.
He's just a beautiful man. So I love the feeling behind it, the reasons for it. And she went with it fairly easily. I mean, there was maybe a little bit of like, a little bit of attitude, but considering what other people might have done in that situation, I thought she handled it
Mm-hmm.
fine. I have noticed that on the Reddit and on the
Mhm.
other groups, people are really coming down on Clara for how she acted before she walked down the aisle, which confuses me. I didn't think she really was acting all that diva-ish or however people would like to classify it. I thought she was nervous. I think she was feeling the anxiety
Yeah.
very much. And she did voice it. She told people how she was feeling, but she wasn't having a tantrum. She wasn't yelling at anyone or crying. It was just, I don't like my makeup, I don't like my hair, and my dress is a mess. Her dress was a mess.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
hem was
wasn't
terrible.
great.
So I felt bad for her. Um, However, considering all of that, she was fine. I don't know why people had such an issue with
That's
her.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? What did you think of
This is
that?
where my stereotypical guy logic comes in because I could not tell the difference. I clearly am not a hem expert, but yeah,
What?
I mean, I've gone to tailors before though. Okay, but yeah, not a hem expert. um, yeah, I think in terms of Ryan, that letter that he wrote that she read beforehand was uh he's like Shakespeare with a mohawk. It was just like she
Mm-hmm.
was tearing up, the mom was tearing up, all the friends were the bridesmaids were tearing up. I was like, this is amazing. It was so well written, and his vows, amazing, incredible. Like the different moments in his life and how just incredible.
Mhm.
If you're not a writer, please consider going changing careers, becoming a writer, Ryan. Um, and I think I liked her ice me like that was great. That was funny. That was personable. I Yeah, they seem amazing. You're right though with the blindfolds. We were kind of commenting on that earlier as well, where it's great on paper, but then when you're actually going through, like, she was nervous, so I think a lot of the comments that of her being diva was just this was starting to kick in, like the she was starting to like, okay, I'm actually going to get married to someone I've never met before.
Mhm.
I totally
Right.
empathize with that, and I mean, there are people who know who they're marrying, and when the moment comes, they get a little nervous, you know. So I think that was completely fair, and um, I I don't think she was. I'm with you. I don't think she was being a diva in that moment, and even if she was, she has every right to do so in that moment. This is a lot
Mhm.
to handle in a
It's
short.
normal. That is a
Yeah,
normal reaction
yeah,
to being
Mhm.
like about to walk down the aisle to marry someone you don't know. Like
yeah.
I, I would like to anybody on Reddit who's like mad at Clara for having emotions. I'd like to see you in that situation and see how cool, calm, and collected you are, and like how many, like you're just meditating in the corner, like ready to go. Like
Reddit
that's just not
Redditors,
how
we're not
humans
coming
work.
at you. I promise.
Yes, I
We
am.
come in peace. No, we're not. We're coming in peace. We come in peace. We also like Reddit. But yeah, I know what
Mhm.
you mean about
Yeah.
that. It's one of those things that's easy to talk about, but then when you're like in the moment, I think a lot of people would react the same way.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Um, so, do you think they like each other? Do you think they're kind of into each other
I think so.
a little bit?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
so. It's hard to tell a little bit because it feels a little bit like they're trying to tell the story of like Clara talks too much and Ryan finds that annoying. And I don't know if I saw enough like long enough clips to see like how he was reacting to her as she was saying something. It was a lot of like when the video goes from her face to his face, it's easy to stitch together like telling one story. And so I don't know, it was hard to
Mhm.
tell if that was actually a problem or not. My feeling was they were fine. It was just like normal
Right.
awkward first date banter of just trying to like calm down enough. Like I think that she just like they were saying in I think it was her dad who was giving the speech and like congratulating them and everything, but he talked about how like she's has the gift of gab or whatever. No, she just like talks a lot, and that's kind of how she deals with her nervousness sometimes. Um, but I think that they do like each other. They did seem to like have a bit of a connection, I thought.
Mhm. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so too. I think they're super cute
yeah.
together
Yeah.
and very much into each other. It's funny you were talking about Ryan's reaction to Clara talking to her bridesmaids. And a part of me wonders if they just happened to catch him while he was trying to understand what a producer was
Yeah.
telling him.
Mm,
You know, if it because it almost looked like he was trying to understand
yeah.
something like, I'm
Yeah.
confused, like I'm not quite sure what's going on
Yeah.
here. And they're just putting it out there for us to confuse all of us and make us think a certain
I
way.
mean, yeah.
Um, but I think they'll be fine. You know, she's
Yeah.
adorable and she definitely wants to be married. She's sick of the dang scene. We've heard her talk about it. This poor girl with that one
Oh
schmo,
my god.
right? Who like offered her the $100. Like, what is that all
That's what
about?
I'm curious about. Is
How?
that like a
That's the most
bribe?
millennial shit I've ever heard.
Well, I mean, the fact
Yeah.
that he offered
Who Venmo
money
you?
is already a little not millennial because the millennial doesn't have money, right? That's the joke.
I'll send you some avocados.
It's like, I was going to say no, but now that you mention avocado toast, maybe. I think also when they were talking, they were doing their first dance, and he was like asking her about what's the last live concert you went to, and she was like Blink 182 and Lil Wayne, and he's like, oh, I was there too. Like they're
Mhm.
like they go to the same
Oh,
festivals and
yeah.
concerts,
Yeah, that's a
like.
good sign.
And like if you're a festival person, being paired with another festival person is a big deal. So like that alone, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
there's like a 40% chance already that they're gonna stay together just based off of that one conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think he seems to be like asking, you could tell he's trying to like learn more about her, so a lot less of the light questions, a little bit more of the more insightful type questions. I don't know if
Hmm.
that's a thing, but um yeah, I they are like, honestly, they're the one home run couple for me right now. Like, I'm pretty sure they're going to stay together. There's a very high chance of that. Cut to me 5 weeks from now being like, I was wrong, but they seem like the home run couple. I think the experts, like, this is their first interracial couple, and I think they tried their very best to pick two people who had a lot in common despite being
Hmm.
from different backgrounds. And like, their friend groups alone, like, I couldn't tell which were his friends and which were her friends. And like, that's a lot of like, that's a good sign of like, all right, you guys are gonna hang
Hmm.
out with similar type people, you do similar type activities for fun. A lot of good signs there.
Yeah. And I think there has been
Absolutely.
interracial couples in the past, but maybe not in like recent seasons that we've
uh,
watched. Because I've seen some posts around that where people are like, there's been interracial couples before, and then they list them all out. And I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I've only watched since like season 8 or something.
Technically,
I just missed it
is
entirely.
Vincent and Brianna are technically an interracial couple too, right? You could say.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
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 Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I wish we could see more of Clara and Ryan's families interacting
Mm.
to see how that is, because I think it's great that both Ryan and Clara have some experience being in interracial relationships before to kind of draw on. But the family aspect is a kind of a whole other ball of wax, because you might be cool with something and your family might feel differently about it. And so having everyone in the room here is a
Yeah.
good opportunity just to look around and see if anyone's talking to each other or throwing looks, or
Yeah.
if we're all okay or not.
Yeah.
Because longer term, that could be like something to work through. But we didn't really see
Right.
much of that yet, so I don't know.
I did notice how Ryan's mother was reacting during the vows. When
Okay.
Clara was speaking her vows, she was nodding the entire
Okay.
time. There was a lot of, I mean, just she was kind of like half smiling. Overall, the families, from what I've seen, they both seem to really like what's being presented
Mhm.
to them. So, I don't know. I really think the families are going to mesh. As you said, the friends are going to mesh so easily. And maybe Ryan will come out of his shell a little bit. I think he's a little bit saucier than we realize so far. And he'll show that as the weeks go on. I mean, come on, he's got to have a little bit of an edge to him. His friends and everything seem to.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we'll see more of that revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. When
Also, they're just a really cute couple. They look good together.
I
They
think
are. Yes,
his
they're
mother
beautiful.
said that at one point. I don't know who she was talking to, but you could see they cut to her being like, "Oh, they're a cute couple," or something like
Hmm.
that. Um, when the his family was doing friends and family were doing his vows. This is just a quick aside, but when they mentioned he's very much into politics, and she's like, "Oh, great, I'm a poli sci major. I was a poli sci major." I've never. That's interesting. I have family members who are into politics, but if you ask them, they'll say they're not. It's very. I wonder how much politics you have to talk for your friends to be like, yeah, no, he's really into politics. Like, we've got hours of conversation. It's an interesting
I mean,
thing.
not like there's anything to talk about these days in the US about politics.
Yeah,
Right,
Not that much.
yeah.
exactly.
It's pretty chill.
There are less strenuous hobbies out there than politics. I'll just say, get into football like the rest of us. But yeah,
We need we need good people to be in politics though.
true.
But that's cool they have that common ground. I missed that where she said she
Hmm.
was in that she had studied poli
Hmm.
sci.
Yeah,
Very nice.
yeah,
Yeah. So, are we in agreement that we think that they're going to make it? It seems like it.
yeah. Same,
Thumbs up.
same.
Mhm.
We're
I like
clearly
it.
biased, but same. I think they'll be fine.
Oh, man. So, I think another couple that we're all going to be very excited to talk about, because we have high hopes for them,
True,
Vincent and Brianna.
true.
How
Just
gorgeous are those two? Also, Brianna looked like a Disney
She
princess.
she
I
legitimately
felt like
does.
a bluebird was going to
yes.
land on her shoulder, and like It was she looked great.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. She just looked like Stardust was
Where
following
is
her
that?
everywhere. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
How did you feel like
Oh,
their chemistry was?
I think it's there. I think they're both kind of shy about it though. Like they're a
Mm-hmm.
little bit quiet, but I think they both very much like each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was picking up on that. He seemed to be blushing almost the entire time. Did you notice
I
that? I mean,
I think
really,
he just had
he
little
did.
hearts in his eyes. It was just like, oh my God, this
Yeah,
gorgeous woman is my wife now. What do I do?
exactly. Um, and she was pretty candid. I mean, when she talked to the producers, all she was saying was, "Oh, he's handsome.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. Like this is, you know." So she also was very
Mhm.
forthcoming
Mm-hmm.
with her whole feeling towards
Mm-hmm.
him. And I didn't expect that from her. I thought maybe she would be a little more hesitant to say exactly how she felt, you know, more like hard to get, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But I think
Yeah.
she's definitely into it, and he is too.
Yes.
I'm so
I
excited.
know. I was just smiling the whole time I was watching them. I was like, I like them so much.
Mhm.
Hmm. When he was talking about, okay, I want to be there. Like I want to be his wife right now. When he was talking about, well, I want to do that with you. I want to get in there in the kitchen and cook with
Mhm.
you, get a bottle of wine. I mean, I was imagining the whole experience. I could smell the food. I could, you know, taste the wine.
Uh-huh.
I can imagine the wonderful romantic comedy we'd be watching later
Um,
on. Like I was there with you,
what
Vincent.
rom-com? I'm curious. What
Seriously.
rom-com would be?
You know, I think it would be something a little bit action
Hmm.
slash rom com. Is that a thing? Something like
Action slash rom-com.
like
That's a. There's that
yeah,
like.
Gone in 60 Seconds. Isn't that
Yeah.
kind of rom com?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
okay.
guess. I guess so.
We're planning out like their first date night together once they're back
What's the
home.
one with Angelina Jolie? It's like Mr. and Mrs. or something like that, where they're like,
Yes,
Oh, that's a
yes,
good
Mr. and
one.
Mrs.
yeah, like
That's a
Smith.
good
that
one.
could be like an
Hmm.
action rom-com. Die Hard. I'm kidding. That's interesting. Yeah, they are. I think his friends. I really like how his friends are like bumping him up every time. Like before the wedding, they're just like cheering him on, and like during the wedding, they're just like
They're so
they're so
supportive. I was like,
supportive. Like
yes, for like healthy adult relationships, like with friends when you're in a like it makes such a
yeah, they're like,
difference.
"Oh, you look good." I'm like,
Yes.
"Are you not going to make fun of him?" Like the dynamic I have with my friends is like they'll say you look good and then proceed to make fun of you. I'm not. I was expecting that to kick in and it didn't. I'm like, "Oh, they just like him and they want him to do well." Okay, this is a healthy.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah, that was really beautiful and so surprising. We're so jaded.
I
Oh
know.
We
my goodness.
are. We really
Like
are.
We have low expectations of people. Like we're expecting them to be crappy friends, but they're actually nice people.
I
Yeah.
also when he was giving his vows and it was a heavy push of like God is brought you into my life, and they cut to someone on her side. I think it might have been her sister, and she's just pointing up in the air.
Yeah. She was all
yes.
about it.
But I've only seen people do that in like in soccer games when the guy scores. Like you'll see, especially like the Catholic soccer players from like South America, they'll like do a sign of cross and point up, and be like, "Yeah, you did this. You got my
Yeah.
goal." So I wasn't expecting her to do that in the middle of a wedding, and that's just amazing. Like clearly they love this as well, and they can identify with that. And he, like you said, he looked like he was blushing the entire time. He was just,
He has a crush on her.
yeah,
Ooh.
really does, really does.
I think though too he
Now,
has like a nice cadence of how he speaks. Like
Mm,
it's I think even though he's nervous, like he
mhm.
still like talks very like laid back and gives like a very sort of calming vibe. And
Yeah.
what I liked a lot is like right after the ceremony and they go and have their champagne or whatever. And um I don't know who brought it up, but I think she might have asked him like, "Do you dance?" And then he was like, "Yeah, like I, bachata, merengue, like we're, Dominican family, so like dancing is a big thing." And she was like, "Yeah, I don't know how to do those, but like you're gonna have to teach me." And it was like immediately it was like, "Yeah, this is the thing we're gonna do
Yeah.
together now." It wasn't like
Yeah.
it was like this is an us thing. And I was like so here for that energy of like, all right, like I can learn some stuff. Like, this is stuff we can do together. And like,
Mhm.
that's the cutest thing ever to me.
Absolutely. And the way he said those dances, I mean, it was so smooth.
It's
It
true.
was just, I
It's
will
true.
never ever sound as cool as he
Yeah.
sounded saying
Yeah.
those dances. I won't even try.
Just like
That's it.
he never seems like he's rushing when he talks. It's always just like this is
Hmm.
the pace I'm going to talk, and yeah, very smooth. I'm very jealous. I gotta learn
Hmm.
how to do that. Um, yeah, I do. Also, I like how she was trying to go into like first date questions, like what do you do? Do you like stuff like that? And he would answer them, but then he would continue, like he would go back to like how he felt in the moment. And I think that's
Hmm.
a really great instinct. I think a lot of people in that situation would then go into like 21 questions mode, and he was like savoring the moment almost of like, okay, I'll answer your questions, but like you're amazing and we're married and like let's celebrate that and then answer
Yeah.
some more questions, and just great instincts. Really, really, really good instincts. And super last thing for me on them, but Ashley mentioned what was that lighting when they were on the balcony? What is that high?
What?
There's like a certain time of day where
Oh,
like the lighting is perfect.
Oh, she had the golden
yeah.
hour lighting
Golden
her.
hour.
Oh my God. They looked
Yeah.
Yes.
amazing. I was like, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but they did her right with that lighting. Like, she looked
Hmm.
like a magical goddess of the sunset.
True.
Yes, she did.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, yeah, I don't think she could be in bad lighting ever just because of how beautiful
God.
she is. But you're right. I mean, that was just especially top drawer lighting. Just she was amazing. It's so funny you mentioned earlier what he
Mm-hmm.
does and her reaction to it. Did you notice that? Because I was worried for a
Mm,
moment that she wouldn't be on board with it when he was explaining what his work
Mm-hmm.
is. And there was this about face that happened so instantly. I was
mm,
like, thank goodness. But at first, she was very serious and like you almost thought she was going to
mm.
start frowning. She looked like she was just on the verge. And then she's like, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Was not
Yeah.
expecting that at
Mm-hmm.
all. I was like, thank goodness he's going to get that kind of support from her. And, the same thing about her pescatarianism. Will that be an issue for them? It seemed like he was kind of open to it, and said, well, I want to go ahead and cook with you.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll make it a thing that we do
Yeah.
together. Just
Yeah.
really, this couple is
They did like the whole
Yeah.
spectacular.
symbols drop when she was like, I like Chick-fil-A. And it was like, da 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 da. Half of
Ah,
this
okay.
country likes more than half of this country likes Chick-fil-A. Okay, it's not a
Right.
controversial statement. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, definitely. I am curious to see because that was my fear too of how that reaction would go in terms of what he does, and I don't think we've actually heard it until this episode of like the whole brokerage business model that he has. And
Hmm.
when he explained it, I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
was helpful.
it was very helpful. I needed that. I was like, you're next to fancy cars all the time. What does that? What's your job? I'm confused. And seeing him explain that, like, you must be great at networking. This seems like something where you have to like make sure you have a solid Rolodex of people.
For
And
sure. For
yeah,
sure.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I think they have a really, really great approach already, it seems, where instead of, I think we've seen in like past seasons where, like, even just like on the wedding, that they are asking each other questions. And if they got a response that they didn't like, where if someone said, for example, like, oh, I'm a vegetarian, then the person sees it as like, oh, you're taking away like I like to eat meat. Now I can't do that because of you.
yeah,
Instead of that being
Hmm.
like, oh, cool, I get to try some new vegetarian recipes, but that doesn't mean that like I have to stop eating meat. Where it's like you're adding things to the relationship. Where like he's going to teach her how to dance and she's going to teach him how to cook different types of fish he might not have cooked before, and like all these different things. It's just like
yeah,
we have this whole wealth of knowledge that we can share with each other and like make each other better with, because we're different, because that's how humans are. But like we're going to come together and form this like really diverse
mm,
union because of all our different
yeah,
experiences. So I love that they're kind of taking that path with it of like we're adding to each other, not taking away.
right.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So I like them a lot, if you couldn't tell.
I think they're like the internet's
Me
favorite couple right now, right? Like I think
Yeah,
they might be.
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, we saw a little bit of Paige and Chris at the end. We're going to get, I think, the rest of their wedding next episode. So we see like them getting ready and they're like, with their bridesmaids and the groomsmen. Um, Chris was mostly talking about how he was really concerned that he would be about if he would be attracted to her or not. That if she was, he used the word ugly a lot. If she was ugly, he didn't know what he was going to do. That would be the end of the road for him. Like, what's going to happen? And she was just like,
Oh no.
good. Like, from her perspective, the Lord brought her to that moment to give her the man that she's supposed to be with, and she trusts in that, and
Hmm.
she's going for it.
Mm.
And I am
Exactly.
just feeling like this low level dread for her because I feel like it's going to be a bumpy road. And I'm curious if you feel that too.
Oh, it's not low level dread, it's high
Yeah.
anxiety I'm feeling for this poor woman. You're right, though. The what is it? Irony?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if that's the proper term for it, though. There's something more intense I feel I should be labeling this. But the idea that he claims to be this, child of preachers and ministers, and that he himself was a minister for a time, and he's so religious, and now everything he's saying is just there's no faith attached to it. I mean, and then she, on the other hand, is really walking in her faith, it seems, this entire time, every second leading up to the
Mm-hmm.
wedding. She's
Yeah.
walking in her
Mm-hmm.
faith. This man doesn't know how to do that. He can say it, but he certainly doesn't know how to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And I just, there's so many things I want to say about Chris. I just don't want to be insulting. I really, I don't think he was in it for the right reasons to begin with. Um, I think he's concerned over a woman wanting him for his money. That was one thing that really bothered me. He said, I think the episode
Mm-hmm.
before, a woman wanting him for his money. But he's on a show where this person knows absolutely nothing
Exactly.
about him.
Exactly.
And I can't even wrap my head around that. I don't think he understands what he's saying. I mean, how was this woman after you for your money? I mean, unless you make it
Yeah. Like
about that. And you know he's
yeah.
going to. It's just, there's something about him that just seems so very, like, how people learn lessons and, the, everything we need to do in order to become better people. Like those lessons, he certainly has not learned
Mm-hmm.
yet. Or I don't even know if he'd be open to
Yeah.
them.
I think in his
Mm.
mind, he has learned those because he has become financially successful with his six figures, whatever that means, and his restaurant, which is we found out is a Subway franchise, which like no shade, but he made it seem like it was like a restaurant he like started from scratch, which is a lot different than purchasing a franchise. But anyways,
Right.
I think in his mind, like he's kind of come up out of a different life situation, and like that is actually pretty
Yeah.
impressive what it seems like he's done with his career.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I think he's one of those people that has the sense that they're done. Like, I'm done. I've done my growth and now I'm at the peak and this is where I am. And not realizing that, like, I think you're going up a mountain in your growth and then you maybe hit a little, like, peak where you can, like, enjoy the view and stuff. But then you turn around and you start climbing again because there's always somewhere to go.
Mm.
And, like, if you just kind of hang out there, then you're denying yourself a lot of opportunity just to experience life in a different way. And so I think that's what comes across as like really irritating to me, where it's just like you think you're the full package, like you don't think that there's anything left to work on for you, and like that's a big problem.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard rooting for him. And we were watching one of your episodes, and you compared him to Zach from previous season, and as you know, was rooting for Zach way longer than I
Way
should.
too long. Way
Way
too
too long. I was wrong on that one, but I thought they could make it work. I I think so this is going to be me basically trying to justify him for like 5 minutes or 2 minutes or something. But I think he has a awful way of describing. He's not the most. He's
Women.
eloquent. He's very eloquent, but not in a way that sounds humble. Like, for example, a lot of the things he said, Brianna actually said as well, where she was like, I want to make sure that I'm attracted to him physically. She actually said, well, they gave a scene of her saying that before she
Mhm.
walked down the aisle. And then right after that, she's like, oh, he's tall, he's got a beard, check, 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 like all the things. So they are both saying the same thing, but he seems like such a hole, for lack of a better word, when he says it. And I think it's just the way he phrases it. I like no one is going to want to get married to someone that they don't find attractive. Well, most people in his situation would not want to be married to a person that they don't find attractive. That's fine. That's okay. You don't need to repeat that every 5 seconds. Like I think that's where it becomes a problem with him. Um, and I really want to like him, and I'm hoping that when we go on further, we'll see another side of him. Um, because I want Paige to do well. Honestly, like
Mhm.
I think she seems like such a great person from what we've seen, and I want her to have a happy ending or a happy marriage. So, uh, but the dollar signs in his name, please tell me that was just like a joke from one of the editors. And I really hope he didn't like ask them to like make sure you got dollar signs in my name and like even the whole like oh I was a pastor but there was no money in that so I like
Yeah.
Mhm.
a lot of people change careers because of that. I'm sure, and I'm sure there's been people who like their family had to pull them aside and be like, "Hey, I know you love the Lord, and I know you want to minister, but you got to pay for rent." Like I'm sure that there are people who've been in that situation. So him
Mhm.
saying it that way would be completely fine, as opposed to there's no money in praising the Lord. It's just like, dude, you look so
Yeah.
bad
Mhm.
right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
Um,
He's like the worst PR person for himself.
it really is.
It's a great
Like
way to
he
put
could
it.
be
Yeah.
actually fine. It's just he communicates all this stuff in such a poor
Mm,
way that he
Mhm.
doesn't realize what he's like all his comments around like how she's got to be like he wants his future wife to be sexy and a freak and
mm,
submissive, like using those words, and then like how he wants his kids to be like clones or duplicates of him or something. Like he just there's ways
yeah,
to say that you want a big family and that you want a family business without sounding like a jerk and like making it seem so entirely self-serving. Like
yeah,
it's just like that lack of awareness of how others might perceive him is like, honey, like who is enabling you? Who has not took you aside and been like, you can't say stuff this way.
yeah,
People are gonna think this, and I know you're not like that. So you've got to have that match up, you know?
yeah,
I just feel like
Mhm.
Paige has such high expectations because her her faith isn't in this process and married at first sight and the experts is even though like that's kind of what's facilitating that on the ground here, but she's seeing this as like this is a thing that God put into her life. This is a path that was laid in front of her and she is walking down it because it's just been foretold in some way, and he's coming at it as just like, hope I get a sexy lady, and like those are really
yeah,
different places to come from. So I'm really worried that she's going to be disappointed. I'm really worried that he's going to not meet her where she is, and it just
Mhm.
feels like just a big car crash waiting to happen, and I don't want to watch
yeah.
it.
It does.
Absolutely. I know. I'm terribly worried. And what you're speaking to on his lack of awareness and like this lack of emotional
Yeah,
intelligence, it seems.
exactly.
Um, why is this man talking about wanting a honeymoon baby? That's what I want to know. How is that ever a good first step in a
Yeah,
relationship, especially with someone you don't even
Hmm.
know? Uh, Can we build from anywhere? Can there
yeah,
at least be some sort of foundation
Yeah.
first? And this seems to be a recurring theme with him, right? because we've heard the timeline of, am I allowed to go into this? The timeline of his past
Sure. Oh
relationship
yeah.
without
Oh,
spoiling anything? Okay. So we know that he, I think, explained it on the show at one point, was talking to his pastor, Pastor Dwight, about this. And he said, okay, so I met my girlfriend. We met in October. We were officially a relationship in November. I proposed in February and we were broken up in July or June, I
Mhm.
believe. It's a lot going on in a very short span
Yeah.
of time. So maybe learn from those past experiences and pace yourself. You know, we talk about Virginia with the drinking and pacing
yeah.
herself. There's so much more on the
Yeah.
line here. He is basically he's messing with other people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just about himself. He's messing with Paige at this
Mhm.
point, and he's not learning any of the
Mhm.
lessons. I don't think he's even willing to, because as you said, Ashley, so beautifully, he feels like he's done. You know, he's like, I've gone through it. I've suffered my hardship. I was homeless for a while, living out of my car, and believe me, to come back from where he was is
Yeah.
totally
Mhm.
impressive.
Yeah.
I get it. But there's so much more that he needs to find a way to figure out, and he's not there yet. And I don't know if he ever
I
will be.
know. Feels like he's going through the checklist of like big career, check. And lots of money coming in, check. Got a nice car, check. Apartment, check. Next one, lady. And like the way when you're saying like the honeymoon baby, which he's mentioned a few times, and like he walked that back when he was talking to his
Mm.
pastor, where he was like, maybe I shouldn't have sex right away. And like, okay, like that's probably a discussion between you and your wife, not just your decision. But it
Yeah.
also, when he talks about that, it makes it seem like she's just means to an end, that it's not really about her. It's about, is she hot enough that I'm going to want to have sex with her and have a baby with her that can be my reproduction? Like, that's my clone, clone one of eight.
Mm.
That's complete. Like,
Oh gosh. Sounds so scientific. It doesn't really sound like
I'm just
a.
saying. And again, this could just be he's bad at communicating this stuff. Like, this could just be under the surface. It's genuine and all this stuff, but I'm trying really hard to say
Well,
like
yeah, right. Like,
there could be a version of this that like
yeah,
we're just not getting because of how he doesn't seem to know how to communicate it, but
yeah.
it doesn't feel likely.
Like the level of bravado that he's using to describe himself and his view on relationships, that doesn't match someone who got engaged a few months after meeting a person. Like I'm really hoping that the way he talks is not similar to the way he actually behaves within a relationship. That's one hope. The other is maybe he views this as some way of, like there are certain people who are like public speakers and their whole thing is about like, I got rich doing this, so you can too, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to brag about how wealthy you are because I did this, so you can too. I don't know. Maybe he has like a book coming out or something about how you can, because it almost sounds too.
How you can ruin women's lives.
It seems like he's gonna sell me a book about real estate, or something like that. Like it's got that feel to it. I don't know.
I know.
It's a
We'll see, I
struggle.
guess.
It's a struggle. Like, so I guess here's the here's a potentially sad question, but
Uh-oh.
Paige strikes me as someone oops, who strikes me as someone who was like going to try, and if he is as awful as we anticipate or as awful as we see now, that doesn't mean that they won't make it. Like, if she could be constantly bending to this, um is that a fear that is fair to have in this situation, or do you think she would, because she is very confident from what we've seen as well, of being like, maybe no, this is not going to work, I'm going to cut off this relationship now. What do you think is going to happen in the future with them?
That's a great question because Paige does seem to be very self
Mm,
possessed, as you're saying. However, if she does believe that God has brought her to this point to be with this man, will she
yeah.
excuse too many bad behaviors? If he continues acting the way we've seen, if he doesn't change ever so slightly with her, So it is a worry now that I'm thinking of it, that she might just put up with a little too
Hmm.
much. Hmm. I hope she doesn't. I want to think that she is respecting of herself enough to not do that. And I think she has really good people behind her. I think she has a really solid family and friends who care very
Yeah.
much about her and would hopefully help her in any sort of situation like
Yeah,
that.
you're right. She does have like a really good friend and family network. I really liked how they were when she was getting ready before the ceremony, and her one friend was like, "What if he's the type of guy that clips his nails? There's toenails on the airplane." And I was like, "Oh my god, what if he is?" Like,
Yeah.
she was just like, "We don't know who this guy is." But I mean, I think they would feel comfortable calling stuff out if they saw it, and be able to talk to her. My fear for her is that because right now she has such a strong belief that this is a marriage that God brought to her, and later if she discovers or feels has this kind of an idea that Chris isn't really a great match for her, maybe isn't treating her well or whatever might happen, she might then have to either like look back at that former belief of like, well, why did God put me in this situation? Like it becomes a faith thing then about like, was this something that the Lord is testing me with? Or
Yeah.
did was that not real? Like, was that not something that God wanted me to do? Did I like misconstrue something? Like it becomes more of a question of her spiritual relationship with God than like the reality of like her relationship with Chris. And I hope that she can separate those two. But I mean, maybe they won't have problems and they'll be fine. I don't think so. But I think like that's a bigger thing to reconcile than just like, oh, he's not treating me right. He's crossed so many boundaries. So like this isn't going to work. And I'm okay walking away from it because she's walking away from this thing that she believes God set her up for. So that's a bigger deal.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Right. That is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's shaking, her very core belief.
Exactly. Exactly.
And yeah, I just really hope it doesn't get to that point for her where she's really questioning everything and the why she was here in the first place and who would possibly put her in that sort of a situation and
Hmm.
why. Um, but if it does get to that point, as you're hoping, I hope as well that she's able to separate it out enough and to kind of
Hmm.
detach uh, that aspect, that sort of, God, this was for me to be with
Hmm.
him, that she's able to separate that out enough to realize, okay, so maybe this was just a part of my whole
Yes. Yes.
journey,
Exactly. Yeah.
as
Yeah. Like this is something that God wanted me to go through to prepare me for my future in some way, maybe my future partner or whatever.
right.
And that's a different attitude
Hmm.
than being like,
Hmm.
this is the guy, because he might not be the guy.
He doesn't appear to be the
Yeah.
guy currently, unless things change.
Yeah.
Hopefully, things change.
Right. I mean, maybe they'll change. What if that's, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Ashley, the chemistry that couples can have just getting together, they create something entirely different that we haven't seen before. Maybe that could happen with Chris and Paige.
Maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, maybe. Also, there's this thing I'm starting to notice a lot of people on the Reddits. We just like Reddit, so every time we refer to Reddit, that's why. But a lot of people are using the lines where he's like, she has to be attractive, and then I think there's this thing that's going on where people are like, oh, he is looking for this type of girl, so he's not going to like Paige. We don't really know that. Like he said, he wants someone attractive. Paige might be what he considers attractive, and I know we're
Yeah.
not us in particular, but I've seen that a few different places where they're like, "Oh, he's looking for a name, whatever
Or like an Instagram model is
Instagram
what people always
model," and um,
Okay.
and I think that's a little unfair on Paige because she is beautiful,
say. She's
and
gorgeous.
Mhm.
that might
Yeah, she
be
is.
what he considers beautiful. And I know I kind of use myself when it was Brett and Olivia. I That was my fear because he was describing how she needs to be good looking, blah blah blah, and I was like, I don't know if she's the type of person that you would consider attractive. And when they saw each other, he's like, "Oh, she's cute. She's great." So it's
Right.
like people of the
Early days are so
interwebs, like let's
different.
give them a little bit of room there. Like maybe he Paige is his type. Um, so there's that. But then on the negative side, I don't like. I'm my concern with him is that he is going to, I don't know, weaponize their being in a like. There was a line where he was like, "When you're married, your body is no longer yours. It's now, it's in the relationship," or something to that extent. And I don't like that type of wording. And
Didn't like that.
that exactly. So and hopefully this is just that bad PR thing that we've kind of mentioned, and he
Mm-hmm.
meant, you have to be thinking about someone else, hopefully. But hearing things like that, and then the way he's constantly mentioning sex, it's like, dude, don't try to use that. Oh, we're married now, so you have to, like, this is not a
Yeah,
traditional
that's
marriage.
wow.
So all those things do not apply to
Mm-hmm.
this. This is your first
Mm-hmm.
date. Your first day is your wedding
Yeah.
day, and that's a fear. But I just, again, hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully they're going to meet each other, and he's going to say, "Wow, she's gorgeous," and they'll have star eyes, and he'll be blushing. I don't know if he can, but whatever version of that, and they'll be fine and happy. Hopefully. Yeah.
Hope
So what
so.
are we thinking? Yay or nay for Chris and Paige?
I think it will be a huge uphill climb if they are to succeed. Right now, I don't think they will. I think he's too superficial and not in it for the right reasons.
What do you think, Ago?
So no, there's some things going around in the internet. We haven't confirmed them, so we're not sure. But if certain things happen, I think no. Um, Spoiler alert: if you don't want to hear anything, please stop. Pause here. Pause this spot in the video. Um,
Just fast forward like a minute.
yeah, but I've heard that the person, so that his previous fiance is pregnant, and if that is the case, I think, knowing his viewpoint on religion and the family unit, I think he's going to feel like he needs to make that other relationship work. So
Hmm.
if that is true, I think that's going to be his. Also, it's like a great way of, if he doesn't find her attractive or whatnot, it's a great way of saying, "Oh, I'm breaking up because of I have a baby from another relationship, and I need to be there, and I want to be a good father." And that's like a nice little off ramp for you to take. And you're not necessarily the bad guy in a situation like this. So because of that, I think no. Um, yeah, so that's why I think no overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they've been like that's been the huge part of all the season 12 promos is the I found out some disturbing news.
Yeah.
She's pregnant and we find out that it's Chris and it seems to be that it might be his previous fiance. I think if like that's the case then how on earth would he have a marriage with Paige? Like she it's not even up to him fully. Like it's also her. Would she want to stay with
Hmm.
a man who had a child with another woman? And it's not like he cheated while he was in the marriage, but that he kind of has this other kind of loose ends happening somewhere else that he probably should go be involved in some way, like kind of figure out what that looks like with his previous partner. So I don't see how that could possibly work because they don't have a foundation of trust to
To start
go
with.
off of.
Yeah.
They're just starting. They
Yeah.
don't really know each other. So um yeah, I'm sorry to say it. I don't think they I don't think they would work. It just like you're saying, Gabriella, like he just seems so superficial and so this really needs some growth in that emotional intelligence or at least how he's talking about stuff. But like
Yeah.
I just
Hmm.
I There's like on Reddit once again, everyone's just like,
Are we sponsored by
run,
Reddit?
Paige, run. Like, get out of there. It's not safe for you. You wish you could, like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all over and done now. She's, sitting on her couch, like, yeah, I know. but
Mhm.
we're just seeing the story now.
Yeah.
So I hope this is
So
all right for her.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did you watch Unfiltered before
We
episode
caught
2?
like the last couple minutes of it, but I was trying to look it up
Okay.
on the Lifetime app and couldn't find it. So, like, what happened in that?
Yeah.
So we had, I always want to call her Carla, Clara, Paige, and Brianna were the guests, along with Jamie. She's still hosting. And Paige, when they cut to her and she sort of introduced herself and how she was feeling about relationships in general and getting married at first sight, she looked exhausted. I mean, because the filming for Unfiltered takes place weeks after, I think, that initial filming, and they've gone through quite a bit of it. If not all of it, maybe
I
all
wonder
of
what the
it. I'm
timeline
not
is like for
sure.
that.
Right. So she just looked like
Oh,
there was so much she wanted to say,
oh,
and she couldn't. She looked exhausted.
I'm sorry to hear that
Hmm.
because she seems great. Like,
Yeah.
she didn't deserve to go through that. But
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
is.
Yeah, she said that she was on Unfiltered, that she was finding her own self-worth, I believe, the strength within herself. There were some slightly coded telling things that she did
Hmm.
say, which make me wonder, are things okay in Chris and Paige
Mhm.
land? I don't
Mhm.
know.
Oh, that's so
That's a
sad.
lot.
That's so sad to hear.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
Mhm.
well, I am curious because we have I keep forgetting their names. Jacob and Haley. We have their wedding coming up next. How do you think their first impressions of each other are going to be?
So, can I just say, I've been listening to your episodes and I think that you're so nice, and I need to learn how to be nicer and not as judgmental. So, I just want to say that first. I don't know why he rubs me the wrong way, but I'm really worried about
Yeah.
Jacob.
Yeah.
He and Chris, I think, are both very on the surface people and more into the looks of things versus maybe the substance of who the person is. When he mentioned at the bachelor party that if his wife was a 7, that would not be ideal, whatever that means. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, has he looked in the mirror? What does he have to offer this situation? Not that he's not a handsome man. That's not what I'm saying. But just the idea that you could say that and rate someone and just have that be
Mhm.
it speaks volumes
Hmm.
to me. So I'm worried. I don't know if he'll like her. I don't know if she'll like him. I think maybe she'll see him as this old fuddy-duddy who just is goofy and corny and has a weird beach in his backyard. And why is he obsessed with the DeLorean still? I don't understand this. I mean, like, get over it.
That was very odd. Of like, I forget the name, the scene where they're like, "What could you say?" And he's like, "Tell Elon Musk." What? What? What?
Yeah,
What?
that's
Oh.
that's what he would waste the conversation with Elon about, like creating the DeLorean. I
Also,
don't even
like,
understand it.
we're
So,
talking about your marriage. Why are you talking about Elon? Like, let Elon do Elon things. Like, you worry about your wedding. That's
well, Elon is kind of mesmerizing, isn't he? Isn't he sort of dreamy? I like him.
are you.
I gotta leave you alone on that one.
I like his cars. His cars are killing it. Like, I would love to have a Tesla of
They
any
are.
kind. Uh,
I kind of want one of those trucks.
Really?
I do. Yeah, I kind of do. I want my own little Roblox going down the street.
I feel
I
like you could
do.
just drive over all the other cars like a
like,
tank.
that has to be the appeal of it, though, right? Like, it's like no one's ever gonna have road rage with you in one of those cars. Like, they're massive.
I love that so much. Yeah, I know with Jacob, I'm like, he does seem very like rigid in the way that he has his life set up. My hope is that he'll see getting married as like this opportunity to create a new version of that. Um, but I read this thing that was like, the difference between like seeing someone as a creep or seeing them as really charming is just if you find them attractive. So like if you go on a first date with someone and you think they're real cute and all they talk about is their like model train collection, you're just like, what a quirky individual. Like I want to make out with them. But if you don't find them cute, you're just like, get me away from this psycho. Like they're probably going to murder me. Like I got to call 911 right now under the table. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of it comes down to that of like the feeling that you have around someone. And I am completely on the fence of if she's going to get a good read on him early on, because I think he's someone that you kind of need to spend some time with to fully get. And I don't know if he understands that he presents himself that way. Um, I just feel like she's kind of going to have a lot of walls up just because of her past and that it's been a while since she's like been in a serious relationship. So I'm 50-50. I could see it going either way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, like that, the thing about the creep thing, I think that's true. But there are certain things that no matter how attractive you are, if you say it, it's like,
You like want
mm,
to see my mannequin collection? You're like, I have to go.
excuse me?
Okay. Did you go down the rabbit hole that was Army Hammer's Twitter from a couple of weeks ago? Did you end
So
up?
the only thing I
Oh,
know
God.
about it is that Miss Cayman or something, like the country was angry at him. Um, but that's, I mean, he's a very attractive person though, right? Like I think he's like we
He is,
can
yeah.
universally described as attractive. He's saying really creepy stuff, I
Hmm.
guess, is the thing.
Oh yeah, he was talking about like wanting to drink people's blood. Like this was all the DMs that he was sending to ladies. I definitely don't want to kink shame anyone. Absolutely not. Like I'm totally into freedom and liberty when it comes to sex and all of that good
But
stuff.
blood drinking,
Um, but then blood drinking
There's some
and
health
right?
hazards there.
and like eating them, like actually eating their body
That's
parts.
cannibalism. That's a
Yeah, right. A little bit. But
what?
no, I mean, some people were tweeting like, I mean, Army Hammer though, like I might let him eat one of my toes. Like I might
No.
just it's Army Hammer. So Ashley, I agree with you. You can say the creepiest stuff there is out
Ooh.
there, and someone will be like, "Oh yeah, but he's hot." It's gonna
Like, oh, it's
happen.
weird and kinky, not like, no, he wants to eat me.
I mean, there are a bunch of like
Yeah.
serial killers who like people are like trying to see them, right? Isn't that a thing with like people who are
Oh
like
yeah.
really into
There's a
serial
weird,
killers?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a line of true
Hmm.
crime that I stay far away from because nobody needs that.
Different
Different
podcast.
podcast for sure.
You do still listen to a lot of serial killer type stuff, though.
I do. I
Just,
love true crime.
yeah. He's just, I think I view him as like a nerd, as a nerdy type of guy who, um, who likes to like when he has a passion, he goes all in that passion. So, bodybuilding was one of those things, and now he only eats steaks for
Oh my
dinner,
god.
and
Please eat some vegetables. The keto diet is so dangerous long term. Like,
yeah.
as someone who was on it for a little while, like, I literally had been on keto for a couple of months and I went to get a physical because also I was having some back pain. And my doctor was very unhelpful in saying, well, lift things with your legs and not your back. So the back pain was not resolved. And later they called
But
me
were
with
you?
like my results from the blood test and they were like, yeah, everything's wrong. So whatever you're doing. And then like a year later off of keto, like completely fine. Like it's not good for you.
Yeah.
The
Humans are not made to eat
Right.
only fat. Like it's just not how we're made.
I mean, his triglyceride levels have to be off the
Yeah.
charts. It's really scaring me. How is this man still
He's
alive? I don't understand it. It's been 3 years? 3 years steak
a
and
long
eggs,
time.
uh,
I think.
Yeah.
Long time.
I do want to talk about the scene with him and his friends, and there's just steaks on the table. So
Those weak ass burgers. Come on.
They were like charred
I
to
am
a crisp. There was nothing
I'm
left
so
of
happy
them.
you mentioned that. So I was watching your video
Yeah, your
and you
video was
mentioned that,
amazing.
and
I'm
I was
dying.
dying of laughter. Like
Yeah.
no chips, no sides of any kind, no like
He
just
didn't even pretend to be hospitable. He was like, you're going to eat like me when you're here.
like just because you only eat meat doesn't mean they have to only. throw some veggies in the microwave. Gosh, like, I mean,
I'd bring my own little bento box with me if I went over there. Like, I'd pack my own picnic. No, not going to do that to me, Jacob.
oh, gosh, it's just. But his thing about the backyard, not wanting to mow the yard, so he has a beach back there. That's solid guy logic. I can't disagree with that logic. And like when he was saying it, I'm like, no, that makes sense. That makes total sense to me. I get it. I get it. You know. So,
Okay, was getting some landscaping ideas that we're gonna have to discuss now.
well, I kind of like. I like the idea of having like maybe
I'm
some
not
like
going to say.
stones and like some cacti out there or something. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the fence he could paint like a mural of waves or something, a
Very
sunset.
seaside.
Yeah, spruce it up. Has potential.
With Haley, I'm just curious how like open she'll be to compromise and like how quick she'll be to warm up and all this stuff.
She's kind of hard to read, at least from what
She
we've
is.
seen. I
So it
don't.
could just be we don't really know her yet.
Yeah.
But
Like I don't
she's
really
cool.
like. Maybe she's into this. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, they're probably not going to stay together. I'm with you on that one. just be
We'll see.
transparent.
I don't know. Yeah, some of the previews didn't look so great. It looked like they were arguing in a couple of the upcoming episodes.
So, in terms of the
Right.
two couples, we don't think Chris and Jacob and Haley, and so Chris and Paige and Jacob and Haley are the like.
Yeah. To keep an eye on.
So I would probably put Chris and Paige at the bottom, Jacob and Haley, a little bit of a potential, but probably not. And then we have take your pick for the top 3 spots. I think they're all pretty solid.
What would be your like top couple though, if you had to pick your more likely to make it couple?
As unlikely as it seems right now, I'm going to say Virginia and Eric.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. I think they both want that traditional marriage and they want it to work. I think she will listen to him. I think she likes him a lot. And he's going to put in whatever it takes to somehow see this through.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for them. I like them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think they have, and the reason why I'm not saying Ryan and Clara or even Vincent and Brianna is because Ryan, I could see him almost being overwhelmed, like overstimulated by Clara eventually, possibly. That's my only worry, that she might be a little bit too much for him eventually, or they might not have the same hobbies. It might just be too different. Unless she likes to work out an awful lot, maybe he'll scale that back just a tad. Yeah. But with Vincent and Brianna, I feel very comfortable about all 3, as I said, all 3 of these couples. But the reason why I'm not putting them at the very tippy top is because we still need to see so much more from them. They're very quiet right now. And I think there's a strong-willed and stubborn aspect to Brianna that we'll see more of. And I'm worried that Vincent might bottle up his frustrations with her, and then it eventually will be like, all right, well, no, it's not going to be this way, or there'll be some fight or whatever, and a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
All right, well, it looks like we have a lot to look forward to next episode. We get to see more of the couples together. We get to see Haley and Jacob get to meet each other for the first time. I'm just really excited for the honeymoons, because then we actually see people like hanging out and spending a lot of time together, so you get a better sense of like if they're matched well or not. But until then, Gabriella, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I truly enjoyed it. Thank you.
For anybody who wants to check out your channel or anything else that you're involved in, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Gabriella Elizabeth Marie, Reality TV Reviews. Also on Twitter and Instagram at Phoenix Gem. I do a lot more on Twitter, though, so that's a lot of fun.
All right. And we'll link to all your stuff below, so you guys can go
you.
find Gabriella. For us, we're on Instagram mostly. We're a Cup of 3 podcast there. And yeah, just tune in next week as we cover episode 3 with these crazy couples. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Go watch Gabriella's stuff. She's great. Really. You'll really like it.